The Art of Ignoring Opinions. The Path to Inner Freedom. Published by Audiobooks Hub. Introduction. There is a silent force that governs much of our lives. It is invisible, but it shapes how we dress, how we talk, what we post online, and even what we dare to dream about. This force is not a government, nor a law. It is the opinions of other people. From the moment we are children, we are told, directly and indirectly, that what others think matters. We are rewarded for fitting in, praised for pleasing, and often punished or shamed for straying too far from the expectations of the group. Without even realizing it, we begin to build an inner prison, brick by brick, out of everyone else's judgments. Yet every once in a while, you meet someone who seems free of this invisible cage. They don't dress to impress. They speak their mind, but without aggression. They make bold moves in life without constantly glancing over their shoulder for approval. They aren't necessarily rebellious for its own sake, but they radiate a quiet confidence that says, I am at peace with my own choices. These people don't just seem free, they are free. They have mastered the art of ignoring opinions. But ignoring opinions is not about arrogance. It is not about cutting yourself off from all feedback or refusing to learn from others. Nor is it about becoming numb or indifferent to the world. Instead, it is about learning to distinguish between the noise of other people's insecurities and your own inner compass. It is about freeing your mind from unnecessary burdens so that you can hear the sound of your own values, your own dreams, your own truth. In our hyper-connected age, the pressure of opinions has only intensified. Once upon a time, you had to worry mostly about the judgments of your family, neighbors, or colleagues. Today, a single post on social media can expose you to hundreds, thousands, even millions of strangers ready to judge or criticize. Every like or view becomes a micromeasurement of your worth. Many people live on high alert, constantly performing, adjusting, hiding, or exaggerating parts of themselves in order to avoid disapproval. No wonder anxiety and self-doubt are at record highs. This book is not about blaming society or technology, nor is it about convincing you that opinions are evil. Opinions will always exist, and sometimes they're useful. We need feedback to grow, and we all benefit from wise counsel. The problem begins when opinions become chains, when they control you instead of informing you. If you've ever stopped yourself from trying something new because, what will people think? If you've ever silenced your voice to avoid judgment, if you've ever felt secretly resentful of the approval you're constantly chasing, then you already know how heavy those chains can feel. I wrote this book because I, too, once lived in those chains. For years, I was obsessed with how I appeared to others. Every decision, what to study, where to work, who to date, passed through the filter of, will this look good? I called it being strategic, but really it was fear. Fear of rejection, fear of being seen as foolish, fear of being alone. It took a series of painful experiences for me to realize that living for approval is not really living at all. I began to experiment with small acts of inner freedom, saying no when I meant no, even if it disappointed someone, dressing how I wanted, even if it raised eyebrows, speaking an unpopular truth, even if it risked embarrassment. Slowly, I discovered something shocking. The world didn't end. In fact, the more I ignored unnecessary opinions, the more authentic relationships and opportunities came my way. Through that journey, I came to see that ignoring opinions is an art, not a single act of defiance. It is a practice, a way of living. It requires self-awareness, courage, and above all, compassion for yourself and others. When you master this art, you do not become isolated. You become more connected to life on your own terms. You develop a deep, steady confidence that no amount of praise or criticism can shake. You become free. In the pages ahead, we will walk this path together. Each chapter will explore a different aspect of the art of ignoring opinions. You will learn why our brains are wired to care so much about what others think, and how to retrain your mind to care less. You will see how subtle social pressures, family, culture, media, shape your behavior, and how to reclaim your agency. You will practice concrete strategies for filtering feedback, handling criticism, setting boundaries, and strengthening your inner voice. And you will discover that ignoring opinions is not about rejecting the world, but about embracing yourself. This book is not a manifesto for selfishness. It is an invitation to freedom. Freedom to create, to love, to fail, to grow, without the constant burden of everyone else's expectations. Freedom to build a life that feels like yours, not a performance for others. Freedom to be seen for who you really are, not for who you think you're supposed to be. If you are reading this, chances are you already feel the tension. Maybe you are tired of trying to please everyone. Maybe you are exhausted by the endless comparisons, the scrolling, the pretending. Maybe you sense that you have more to give, more to express, more to experience, but you are waiting for some kind of permission. This book is your permission, not because I grant it, but because you do. The path to inner freedom begins with a decision, a quiet, firm decision, that your life belongs to you. As you read, I invite you to keep a small question in your heart. What would I do, create, or become if I were not afraid of opinions? Let it simmer in the background. You may be surprised by the answers that rise to the surface. And when they do, you will have a choice, to keep living by the old rules or to step into a new kind of freedom. This book will not eliminate all discomfort or criticism from your life. It will not turn you into a robot who feels nothing when judged, but it will give you tools, insights, and practices to build a stronger, steadier self. A self that can hear opinions without being enslaved by them. A self that can respect others without betraying itself. A self that knows where it stands, even in a noisy world. If you are ready to begin this journey, turn the page. Together, we will explore not just how to ignore opinions, but how to live fully, boldly, and authentically. We will practice the art of inner freedom. And perhaps by the end, you will not only understand this art, you will embody it. Chapter 1. Before you can free yourself from the weight of opinions, you need to understand why they matter to you so deeply. It is easy to tell yourself, I shouldn't care what others think. But the truth is that caring about others' judgments is not a personal flaw. It is a survival mechanism that has been built into human beings over tens of thousands of years. In our earliest days as a species, your life literally depended on belonging to the group. To be exiled or rejected meant death. That ancient fear still lives in your nervous system, even though you no longer live in a small tribe on the savannah. Imagine a group of hunter-gatherers thousands of years ago. Food, shelter, and safety all depended on cooperation. If you alienated your group by breaking its rules, ignoring its norms, or acting in ways that threatened its unity, you risked losing protection, resources, and social support. So evolution gave you a powerful emotional alarm system. It taught you to feel pain when rejected, shame when excluded, and pleasure when accepted. This alarm system kept you alive. You inherited it. Every time your stomach knots before you give a presentation, every time you hesitate before posting something online, that is the old system activating. Your body is whispering, be careful, don't be cast out, stay safe. But here's the catch. The environment has changed. You are no longer dependent on a small tribe for survival. Being criticized on social media will not lead to starvation. Being laughed at in a meeting will not get you exiled from your village. Yet your nervous system reacts as though it might. This is why opinions feel so powerful. They are tapping into your deepest survival instincts. Understanding this is the first step toward loosening their grip. You are not weak. You are human. Modern society, instead of calming this ancient alarm, amplifies it. The sheer volume of opinions we are exposed to daily is staggering. In the past, you might have been compared to a handful of peers. Today, you compare yourself to hundreds of curated lives on your phone. Every notification can feel like a mini social verdict, liked or ignored, praised or criticized. It's like living in a permanent tribal council where everyone has an opinion about you. No wonder so many people feel anxious and exhausted. The system was never designed for this much input. The good news is that your brain is plastic. It can learn new ways of responding. You can teach it to recognize that criticism is not a threat to your survival, and that approval is not necessary for your worth. But before you can do that, you must see the pattern clearly. You must see how the craving for approval shows up in your daily life, how it influences your choices, and how it keeps you from your own freedom. Start noticing the small moments. When you are about to speak in a meeting, do you rehearse your words not to be clear, but to sound smart? When you post a picture, are you sharing a memory or fishing for likes? When you decline an invitation, do you feel guilty because you are disappointing someone, or relieved because you honored your own needs? These micro-decisions reveal the subtle ways opinions shape your behavior. None of this makes you bad. It simply shows how deeply social you are. Awareness is not about judgment. It is about clarity. Once you see the pattern, you can begin to experiment. The simplest experiment is to ask yourself before you act, if no one knew about this, would I still do it? This question is a flashlight that reveals your motives. It shows you which actions come from your own values and which come from a hunger for approval. Another experiment is to notice your body's reaction to criticism. When someone disapproves of you, where do you feel it? In your chest, your stomach, your throat? Breathe into that place. Remind yourself, this is an old alarm. I am safe. Over time, this calms your nervous system and weakens the automatic link between disapproval and danger. You can also begin to reframe opinions themselves. Instead of seeing them as truths about you, see them as reflections of the person giving them. Every opinion is filtered through someone else's experiences, fears, and desires. When someone criticizes your work, they are revealing as much about their expectations as about your performance. When someone praises you, they are often praising the part of you that matches their own values. This doesn't make feedback useless. It simply puts it in perspective. You are not a puppet on the strings of other people's perceptions. You are a person with agency, deciding which input to accept and which to release. An important shift happens when you realize that ignoring opinions is not about resisting them with force, but about letting them pass through you like wind through a window. Resistance still gives the opinion power. Indifference dissolves it. The goal is not to harden your heart, but to steady it. A steady heart can listen without absorbing, can observe without reacting. This is the beginning of inner freedom. At first, practicing this may feel uncomfortable. You may worry that ignoring opinions will make you selfish or disconnected, but the opposite is true. When you stop living for approval, you become more authentic. Authenticity invites deeper, more honest connections. The people who truly matter in your life are drawn not to your performance, but to your presence. And paradoxically, when you no longer crave approval, the approval you do receive feels lighter and more genuine because it is no longer a condition for your self-worth. This chapter is not about making you immune to every sting of judgment overnight. That would be unrealistic. It is about helping you understand why the sting exists and showing you that it is not a sign of weakness, but a remnant of ancient wiring. Once you see that, you can begin to train a new response. You can teach yourself to pause, breathe, and choose your reaction instead of automatically shrinking or pleasing. You can begin to replace fear with curiosity. Interesting, they disapprove. Why might that be? You can start to separate your identity from other people's interpretations. Every practice in this book builds on this foundation. If you skip this understanding, you risk turning ignoring opinions into another performance, pretending not to care while still deeply controlled by others. True freedom begins with truth. You care because you're human. You can care less because you're conscious. Take a moment right now to reflect. Think of a recent time when someone's opinion hurt you. Maybe they criticized your work, your appearance, or your choices. Recall the moment. Notice the feelings. Now imagine you had known, in that moment, that your survival was not at stake, that you were safe no matter what they thought. How might that have changed your reaction? This is the space you are learning to create. The space between stimulus and response, between opinion and self-worth. In that space lies your power. The art of ignoring opinions does not start with defiance. It starts with understanding. You are not fighting against your biology. You are updating it. You are teaching your nervous system a new reality. I am safe. I belong to myself. I can listen without losing myself. From that place, every other practice becomes easier. In the next chapter, we will explore how the world around you, family, culture, and media, feeds this ancient fear and how you can start setting subtle boundaries that protect your inner freedom. But for now, simply remember this. Caring what others think is natural. Becoming free from it is possible. And you have already taken the first step. Chapter 3. By now you've begun to see how much of your sensitivity to opinions comes from biology and conditioning. You've also started noticing the external voices, family, culture, media, that shape your judgments. But freedom from those voices isn't just about pushing them away. If you only push away, you risk drifting, feeling cut loose and unsure. True inner freedom is not the absence of influence. It is the presence of an inner compass strong enough to guide you no matter how loud the world becomes. Without that compass, ignoring opinions can feel like rebellion or apathy. With it, ignoring opinions feels like alignment. Your inner compass is made of values, priorities, and self-trust. Values are the principles you choose to live by. Priorities are how you apply those principles day to day. Self-trust is the belief that you can handle whatever follows from your choices. When these three are in place, the noise of external opinions becomes background static. It may still be audible, but it no longer controls the steering wheel. Many people think they know their values, but what they actually know are the values they were taught. You can tell the difference by how you feel when you follow them. Borrowed values feel heavy, like obligation. Chosen values feel steady, like direction. You may still face hard work, but the work feels meaningful. This is why clarifying your values is the first step in building your compass. Make a short list, 3 to 5 words or phrases, that represent what truly matters to you. Not what should matter, but what does. Honesty, creativity, family, adventure, contribution, health, peace. There are no wrong answers. The list is for you. Once you have a list, test it. Imagine a decision you've been hesitating over. Hold it up against your values. Does it align? If it does, move forward even if it's unpopular. If it doesn't, pause even if it's praised. This simple practice begins to shift your reference point from "what will they think?" to "does this fit my compass?" Every time you do this, you reinforce the neural pathway of self-trust. You teach your brain, "I am guided by me." Of course, knowing your values doesn't remove all doubt. This is where priorities come in. Priorities are values in action. They answer the question, given my limited time and energy, where will I focus? For example, if creativity and health are values, your priorities might be to paint 2 evenings a week and to exercise 3 times a week. These concrete choices anchor you. When an opinion challenges you, why are you spending time on art instead of networking? You can check it against your priorities. If your priorities are clear, the question may still sting, but it will not derail you. You will know why you are doing what you're doing. The third piece is self-trust. Self-trust grows from experience. It is the quiet confidence that even if a decision leads to mistakes or criticism, you will learn and recover. This is crucial because ignoring opinions sometimes means going against the crowd. Going against the crowd often leads to discomfort. If you don't trust yourself to handle that discomfort, you'll slide back into seeking approval. But if you know you can handle it, fear loses its grip. How do you build self-trust? Start small. Make tiny commitments to yourself and keep them. Get up at the time you said you would. Write the page you promised yourself you'd write. Say no when you mean no, even if it's awkward. Every kept commitment is a brick in the foundation of self-trust. Over time, the foundation becomes strong enough to support bolder actions, launching a project, leaving a job, speaking an unpopular truth. Self-trust is like a muscle. You strengthen it by using it, not by thinking about it. Another key to self-trust is self-compassion. You will not always follow your compass perfectly. You will slip, please others, or doubt yourself. That's normal. When it happens, don't attack yourself. That just strengthens the old pattern. Instead, acknowledge the slip with kindness. I cared too much about their opinion this time. That's okay. I'm learning. This response turns a setback into practice. Each time you respond kindly to yourself, you reinforce the message, I am safe with me. This safety makes it easier to risk disapproval in the future. Some people worry that focusing on their own values will make them selfish, but selfishness is actually more likely when you lack a compass. Without clear values, you may chase approval, status, or pleasure in ways that harm yourself and others. When you live by chosen values, you become more reliable, not less. People know where you stand. Your yes means yes, and your no means no. Paradoxically, this makes your relationships deeper and more stable. Others can trust you because you trust yourself. You can support your compass with rituals. Morning journaling, meditation, prayer, walking, exercise. Anything that gives you space to hear your own thoughts before the world's noise floods in. Even 5 quiet minutes of breathing before checking your phone can strengthen your connection to yourself. These rituals are not about productivity. They are about orientation. They remind you each day, I belong to myself first. It also helps to find models, not to copy them, but to see what is possible. Look for people who live by their values quietly, without fanfare. Notice how they navigate criticism. Often they are not the loudest or most rebellious. They are simply steady. This steadiness is contagious. It shows your nervous system that calm integrity is possible. It also reminds you that ignoring opinions is not isolation but alignment. As your inner compass strengthens, you will begin to experience a subtle but profound shift. Decisions that once felt like dilemmas will feel like expressions. You will no longer ask, what is the right move? As much as, what is the honest move? You will still consider feedback, but you will filter it through your values. You will still respect others, but you will not betray yourself to keep their approval. You will begin to live from the inside out instead of the outside in. This shift is not dramatic at first. It is quiet, like a tree growing roots. But those roots give you stability. When a storm of criticism hits, you may sway, but you do not uproot. When praise comes, you may smile, but you do not lose yourself. This is the essence of inner freedom, being anchored in yourself while open to the world. Take a moment now. Close your eyes and picture a version of yourself a year from today, living more by your compass. How do you spend your mornings? How do you make decisions? How do you respond to disapproval? See the steadiness in that future you. That steadiness is not out of reach. It begins with small, daily acts of self-alignment. In the next chapter, we'll look at how to handle criticism and praise directly, not by armoring up, but by staying open without being controlled. But before we get there, remember this. Ignoring opinions is not emptiness. It is full of something else, your values, your priorities, your self-trust. Without those, ignoring opinions is just noise. With them, it is freedom. Chapter 4. By now you've begun to feel the difference between drifting away from opinions and standing rooted in your own compass. The next challenge is dealing with opinions in real time. No matter how strong your values are, you will still encounter criticism and praise. Both can be tricky. Criticism can sting and trigger shame or anger. Praise can feel wonderful, but secretly hook you back into seeking approval. Learning to handle both with steadiness is one of the most powerful skills on the path to inner freedom. Let's start with criticism. Most of us were trained to see criticism as an attack on our worth. When someone criticizes you, your nervous system often interprets it as a threat to your belonging. This is why your chest tightens, your face flushes, your mind races to defend itself. But in reality, criticism is just information. Sometimes it's useful, sometimes it's not. The key is to separate the content of the criticism from its emotional charge. A practical way to do this is to pause before responding. When someone criticizes you, take one slow breath and say to yourself silently, this is information, not a verdict. This short pause gives your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that reasons, time to come online. Without the pause, your survival instincts will react automatically, often with defensiveness or withdrawal. With the pause, you can choose. After pausing, ask 3 questions about the criticism. 1. Is it true? 2. Is it helpful? 3. Does it align with my values or goals? If the answer to at least one of these is yes, consider the feedback. If not, you can thank the person and let it go. This doesn't mean you never feel hurt. It means you don't automatically ingest every negative opinion as if it's medicine you're obliged to swallow. Another useful frame is to remember that criticism tells you as much about the giver as about you. People see you through their own fears, preferences, and expectations. A colleague may criticize your presentation style because it's not how they would do it, not because it's wrong. A friend may question your career choice because they are afraid of taking risks themselves. Seeing this doesn't make you dismissive. It makes you discerning. You can listen without surrendering. It also helps to normalize discomfort. The goal isn't to become a robot who feels nothing when criticized. The goal is to feel the sting but not confuse it with danger. When you feel your body react, acknowledge it. I'm feeling shame right now. That's okay. This naming softens the emotion. Emotions are like waves. When you name them, they pass through faster. This allows you to stay grounded and respond from your values instead of your fear. Now let's talk about praise. Praise feels good. It releases dopamine. It gives you a burst of belonging and validation. There's nothing wrong with enjoying praise. The problem arises when you begin to rely on it. When you shape your actions to get more praise, you hand back the steering wheel. Praise can be as addictive as criticism is painful. Both keep you tethered to other people's judgments. Handling praise with steadiness means enjoying it but not basing your identity on it. When someone compliments you, you can simply say thank you without mentally rearranging your self-worth. You can recognize that their praise reflects their values and preferences, just as criticism does. If it aligns with your own values, great. If not, you don't need to change course just to keep the applause coming. One practice for balancing praise is to give yourself private recognition for living your values, even when nobody notices. For example, if honesty is a value and you told a difficult truth kindly, acknowledge yourself. If health is a value and you exercised instead of scrolling, acknowledge yourself. This builds an internal reward system. The more you reinforce yourself internally, the less you'll be swayed by external rewards. Praise becomes pleasant but optional. Another practice is to intentionally do small things without telling anyone. Finish a project quietly. Help someone anonymously. Make a choice aligned with your values and don't post about it. At first, this might feel anticlimactic, even uncomfortable, but over time it strengthens your ability to act from your compass without the hook of public approval. It trains your nervous system to find satisfaction in integrity rather than applause. You can also experiment with what I call gentle exposure. If you tend to avoid criticism, deliberately put yourself in low-stakes situations where you might be judged. Share a creative idea in a small group, where something slightly different from your usual style. Voice an honest opinion in a meeting. When criticism comes, practice the pause, the 3 questions, the naming of emotions. Over time, you'll see that you can survive disapproval. Each successful exposure builds your self-trust. The same goes for praise. Notice when you're tempted to chase it and choose not to. These micro-decisions create freedom. It's important to clarify that ignoring opinions does not mean ignoring consequences. Feedback can be valuable. If your boss tells you your report is unclear, the useful part of that opinion may help you improve your communication. If your partner expresses hurt about something you did, their opinion can illuminate a blind spot. The art is in separating useful feedback from identity threats. You can improve your behavior without surrendering your self-worth. You can apologize for a mistake without apologizing for existing. This skill changes the way you relate to others. When you no longer react defensively to criticism, conversations become more productive. When you no longer hunger for praise, your relationships feel less transactional. People sense your steadiness. They may not always like your choices, but they will respect your presence. Some may even feel safer around you because your self-trust gives them permission to be themselves. Take a moment to reflect on your own patterns. Do you fear criticism more than you crave praise? Or do you crave praise more than you fear criticism? Where in your life are you still adjusting yourself to avoid a bad review or to earn a compliment? This awareness is not a reason to scold yourself. It's a map of where you're still tethered. Each tether you see is one you can loosen. Imagine a scale. On one side is criticism, on the other is praise. Most people swing back and forth, elated by approval and crushed by disapproval. The art of ignoring opinions is about stepping off the scale entirely. You still hear the comments, but you're no longer weighed by them. You are standing on solid ground. Your values, your priorities, your self-trust. From this ground you can take feedback wisely, enjoy praise lightly, and release criticism gracefully. In the next chapter, we'll explore boundaries in action, how to say no without guilt, how to limit exposure to draining environments, and how to protect your inner space. But before moving on, try this. For the next few days, when you receive criticism or praise, practice the pause. Ask yourself the 3 questions. Name your emotion, and then, regardless of the answer, return to your compass. This is how steadiness is built, one opinion at a time. Chapter 5. Inner freedom isn't built only inside your mind. It also shows up in how you manage your environment and your relationships. If you keep exposing yourself to draining situations, or let people overstep your limits, you'll constantly be fighting an uphill battle. Learning to set clear boundaries is like building a protective fence around a garden. It doesn't block out the sun or the rain, but it keeps out the weeds and the wandering animals. Boundaries are how you create space for your values to flourish. Many people associate boundaries with rejection or hostility. They imagine saying no as slamming a door in someone's face. In reality, boundaries are not about pushing people away. They're about defining where you end and someone else begins. Without boundaries, you're like an open field. Anyone can wander in, trample the flowers, or plant their own seeds. With boundaries, you become a tended space. Others can still visit, but under conditions that respect both of you. The first step is to recognize where your energy leaks. Make a simple list of situations or relationships that leave you feeling depleted, resentful, or tense. Notice patterns. Maybe you always agree to work late because you're afraid of disappointing your boss. Maybe you listen to a friend complain for hours because you don't want to seem selfish. Maybe you answer every message instantly because you fear being seen as rude. Each of these is a place where you've outsourced your self-respect to someone else's opinion. Once you see the leaks, decide what you actually want. This is crucial. A boundary is not just a no. It's a yes to something else. If you want evenings to rest, your boundary might be, I'm unavailable after 6 p.m. If you want conversations to be balanced, your boundary might be, I can listen for 15 minutes, then I need a break. If you want focused time, your boundary might be, I check emails twice a day. Boundaries are clearest when they're framed as commitments to yourself rather than punishments for others. Communicating boundaries is where most people get scared. They worry about being seen as cold, selfish, or difficult. But you can communicate a boundary calmly, even kindly. Use simple, direct language without over-explaining. I'm not available tonight. I won't be taking on new projects this month. I can talk for a bit, but then I need to focus. You don't need a dramatic speech. In fact, the calmer you are, the more credible your boundary feels. Expect pushback at first. When you've trained people to expect unlimited access, your first no may surprise them. Some will adjust quickly. Others may test your limits. This doesn't mean you're wrong to set the boundary. It means the system is recalibrating. Stay consistent. Over time, most reasonable people will respect your new limits. The ones who refuse may reveal that their respect for you depended on your compliance, not on your mutual well-being. Remember also that boundaries are not walls. They can be flexible. You can make exceptions consciously without turning them into a habit. For example, you might stay late once for a truly urgent project, or listen longer when a friend is in crisis. The key is choice. If you're choosing, you're free. If you are compelled by guilt or fear, you're back in the grip of other people's opinions. Another important aspect of boundaries is limiting exposure to constant judgment. Some environments are so saturated with criticism, gossip, or comparison that even a strong inner compass gets dulled. This could be a toxic workplace, an online forum, or a social group built on competition. If you spend hours swimming in other people's negativity, you'll absorb some of it no matter how mindful you are. Protecting your inner space sometimes means reducing time spent in those places or unfollowing accounts that trigger you. Curating your inputs is not weakness, it's maintenance. Technology makes this even more urgent. Our phones deliver an endless stream of other people's opinions, likes, comments, hot takes, outrage. Each notification tugs at your attention, inviting you to react. One of the simplest yet most powerful boundaries you can set is with your devices. Turn off non-essential notifications. Keep your phone out of reach during meals or first thing in the morning. Decide when you'll check social media instead of grazing all day. These small steps reclaim mental real estate you didn't know you'd rented out. Boundaries also apply internally. Sometimes the harshest opinions you deal with aren't from other people, but from your own inner critic. You can set limits with that voice too. When you catch yourself spiraling into self-judgment, you can say, "Stop. That's not helpful right now." You can redirect your attention to something constructive, like asking, "What's one small thing I can do to improve?" This inner boundary trains your mind not to indulge every self-attack. A useful way to strengthen boundaries is to practice them in low-stakes scenarios. Say no to a small request. Delay answering a text. Express a preference about where to eat. Each time you assert a boundary and survive the discomfort, you're teaching your nervous system that it's safe to protect your needs. Over time, bigger boundaries become easier. It's like weight training. Start light, add more gradually. Another practice is to rehearse boundary statements out loud. It may feel silly, but it builds confidence. Stand in front of a mirror and say, "I won't be able to do that," or "I need some time to think about it." Notice how your body feels. Adjust your tone to be firm but warm. This preparation makes it easier to speak up in real conversations. What's beautiful about living with boundaries is how much lighter life feels. You spend less time resentful because you are no longer giving from obligation. You spend less time anxious because you're not trying to please everyone. You spend more time aligned with your values, which increases your self-respect. People may not always like your limits, but they will know where you stand, and you will begin to attract relationships and environments that respect your space because you respect it first. Take a moment now to reflect on one area of your life where a boundary could give you more inner freedom. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Maybe it's as simple as turning off work email after dinner. Maybe it's telling a friend you need shorter calls. Maybe it's setting a spending limit to protect your finances. Write it down. Plan a simple, clear way to communicate it, and then do it. Notice how you feel afterward. Even if it's uncomfortable at first, there's often a quiet surge of relief underneath. This is the heart of boundary work. You are no longer shaped by every gust of other people's opinions. You are shaping your environment to support your inner freedom. You're telling yourself and the world, "My space matters." That's not selfish. That's how freedom grows roots. In the next chapter, we'll look at resilience, how to maintain this sense of inner space when life throws challenges at you, when criticism turns into conflict, or when you face losses and changes. Because inner freedom isn't about avoiding storms. It's about learning how to stand steady through them. Chapter 6. There will always be storms. No matter how well you practice ignoring opinions, life will hand you situations where you're criticized harshly, misunderstood, rejected, or blindsided by change. Inner freedom is not about creating a bubble where nothing ever hurts. It's about building resilience, the capacity to return to center after being shaken. Think of a tree. It sways in strong winds, but its roots hold. Without roots, it topples. With roots, it bends and survives. Resilience begins with acceptance. Many people waste enormous energy resisting reality, insisting that unfair things shouldn't happen, that critics shouldn't be cruel, that life should feel easier. But should does not change what is. When you accept that discomfort, disapproval, and change are part of life, you stop taking them as personal betrayals. They become weather patterns instead of moral judgments. This shift alone reduces your suffering. You stop yelling at the rain and start adjusting your shelter. Another pillar of resilience is self-compassion. When you stumble or face harsh criticism, your inner voice often becomes your worst enemy. It says, "You're weak. You failed. Everyone can see you're not good enough." This internalized chorus of opinions can crush you faster than any external critic. Self-compassion interrupts that cycle. It's not indulgence, it's support. It sounds like, "This is painful. I'm hurting, but I'm human and I'm learning." Speaking to yourself like a kind friend activates parts of your nervous system that calm stress and restore balance. It's one of the quickest ways back to center. A practical resilience habit is naming and grounding. When you're flooded by criticism or stress, your body goes into fight, flight, or freeze. Your heart races, your thinking narrows, your hands may tremble. In that moment, quietly name what's happening. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm embarrassed. I'm angry. Then ground yourself physically. Place a hand on your chest. Press your feet into the floor. Take a slow breath. These small actions tell your body you're safe enough to pause. From there, you can respond instead of react. Resilience also depends on perspective. When you're caught in a wave of disapproval or loss, it feels permanent and global, as if this one moment defines your whole life. But almost nothing does. Ask yourself, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? Most of the time, the answer is no. Even if the situation is significant, you have survived hard times before, and you can again. Remembering past resilience is like borrowing strength from your own history. Make a list of 3 times you faced criticism or challenge and came through it. Keep it somewhere you can read when you're shaken. Another way to strengthen resilience is to cultivate supportive relationships. Inner freedom doesn't mean going it alone. It means choosing connections that nourish rather than drain you. Seek out people who respect your boundaries, who listen without trying to control, who encourage you to think for yourself. Even one such relationship can act as an anchor in rough waters. When you're criticized or misunderstood, talking it through with a trusted friend can help you see clearly again. It's not about getting them to agree with you. It's about remembering you're not isolated. Physical habits matter too. Resilience is embodied. Sleep, movement, and nutrition are often overlooked in discussions about inner freedom, but they're foundational. A tired, undernourished, sedentary body has less capacity to regulate emotions. It's easier to shrug off a nasty comment after a good night's sleep than after 3 hours of scrolling at midnight. It's easier to breathe through a tense moment if you've moved your body regularly. Taking care of your physical state is not vanity, it's resilience training. One subtle but powerful practice is to frame challenges as growth opportunities. This doesn't mean pretending pain is fun. It means asking, what might this teach me? Or, how can this strengthen me? If a colleague criticizes your work, maybe it's a chance to improve a skill. If someone disapproves of your choice, maybe it's a chance to reinforce your commitment to your values. This framing keeps you from slipping into victimhood and helps you find meaning even in discomfort. Viktor Frankl, who survived concentration camps, wrote that suffering without meaning destroys. Suffering with meaning can be endured. Resilience also involves letting go. Not every battle is worth fighting. Not every misunderstanding needs to be corrected. Sometimes ignoring opinions literally means walking away from arguments, unfollowing threads, or declining to defend yourself. This is not weakness. It's conservation of energy. Ask yourself, if I engage, will this move me closer to my values, or just drain me? If it's the latter, let it pass. Resilience isn't only about standing firm, it's about knowing when to release. A final aspect of resilience is a sense of identity beyond performance. If your self-worth depends on being liked, successful, or perfect, every criticism becomes a threat to your existence. But if you see yourself as more than your roles or achievements, as a whole, imperfect, evolving human, then opinions lose some of their power. You're not your mistakes. You're not your applause. You're something deeper. This is the ultimate root system. Take a moment now to scan your life. What do you feel most shaken by other people's opinions? Where do you bounce back quickly? What practices help you return to center? Perhaps it's breathing, walking, talking to a friend, journaling, or simply time. Identify your personal resilience tools and keep them handy. They are your anchors in storms. Over time, these practices create a new baseline. You stop dreading criticism because you know you can survive it. You stop craving praise because you know your worth is stable. You stop fearing change because you've built a habit of adaptation. Life still brings rain, but you've built roots and a shelter. This is resilience. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. It's what allows you to walk through the world free from the tyranny of opinions, not because they don't exist, but because they don't control you. In the next chapter, we'll explore how to maintain authenticity and connection even while ignoring opinions, how to speak your truth without arrogance, how to stay open without being swayed, and how to live as yourself in a world that constantly tries to tell you who to be. Chapter 7. It's easy to confuse ignoring opinions with becoming hard or aloof. After all, if you don't care what people think, doesn't that mean you stop caring about people? But true inner freedom isn't about building a fortress. It's about living as yourself, open and connected, without being ruled by approval or rejection. The art is in staying authentic and kind at the same time. Authenticity starts with honesty, first with yourself. You can't be real with others if you're lying to yourself about what you want, what you feel, or what you believe. Begin by noticing small moments where you edit yourself out of fear. Maybe you nod along when you disagree. Maybe you hide your excitement because you think it's silly. Maybe you downplay your pain so you won't be a burden. These tiny acts of self-erasure add up. They teach you that being yourself is dangerous. Reversing this begins with gentle self-permission. It's okay to want what I want. It's okay to feel what I feel. It's okay to express myself kindly. Being authentic doesn't mean oversharing every thought or emotion. It means your outer life and your inner life are in reasonable alignment. You don't wear a mask so tight you forget your own face. You don't speak a false yes when you mean no. You don't pretend to enjoy things you secretly dislike just to fit in. It's about congruence, your words, actions, and values forming a coherent whole. The challenge is that authenticity sometimes provokes disapproval. When you speak your truth, some people won't like it. They may prefer the version of you that catered to them. This is why so many people keep wearing masks. But masks come at a cost: resentment, exhaustion, and a creeping sense of emptiness. The courage to be authentic is the courage to tolerate discomfort, the possibility that some will step back as you step into your real self. Yet this discomfort is also a filter. It clarifies who truly respects you. The relationships that remain, or that form anew, will be built on honesty rather than performance. Authenticity also requires humility. It's not a license to be rude or to bulldoze others with just being honest. If your authenticity hurts people unnecessarily, you're using it as a weapon. True authenticity is paired with empathy. You express yourself clearly and kindly, and you listen with the same openness you want from others. You don't have to agree with every opinion, but you can respect the person behind it. This balance of self-expression and empathy creates genuine connection, even across disagreement. One practice for balancing authenticity and connection is to use I language instead of you language. Instead of saying, "You're wrong," say, "I see it differently." Instead of, "You never listen," try, "I feel unheard." This keeps the focus on your experience rather than attacking theirs. It lowers defensiveness and makes real dialogue possible. It's a way of standing in your truth without making the other person an enemy. Another practice is to notice your body cues in social situations. Are you tensing, holding your breath, or forcing a smile? These can be signs you're slipping into performance mode. When you catch it, take a slow breath, drop your shoulders, and silently remind yourself, "I can be myself here." Even if you don't speak differently at first, your nervous system starts to learn that authenticity is safe. Over time, your outward behavior naturally follows. Living authentically also means letting others be authentic. Just as you don't want to be controlled by opinions, you don't need to control others with yours. You can disagree without needing to convert. You can give feedback without expecting conformity. You can allow people to be different without making them wrong. This acceptance of diversity makes relationships richer and less brittle. You're no longer connecting through shared masks, but through shared humanity. It's also worth examining your motives when you express yourself. Are you sharing to connect or to provoke? Are you being honest or trying to prove you're above caring? Sometimes people swing from approval-seeking to rebellion, defining themselves by opposition rather than by authenticity. That's just another form of bondage. True freedom is quieter. It's saying what you mean because it's what you mean, not because it will earn applause or spark outrage. You may find that authenticity simplifies your life. Decisions become clearer when you're not juggling multiple personas. Conversations take less energy when you're not scripting them in your head. Relationships deepen because you're offering the real you instead of a curated version. Even disagreements become cleaner because you're not trapped in guessing games. This simplicity can feel almost radical in a world obsessed with image. Of course, authenticity doesn't guarantee harmony. Some people will misinterpret you. Some will project their own issues onto your choices. That's part of the deal. But as you practice self-trust, the sting of misunderstanding fades. You learn to clarify when needed, to apologize when you truly err, and to let go when others insist on misreading you. You stop chasing their perception. You focus on your own integrity. A helpful question to ask yourself regularly is, am I living in alignment or in performance? If the answer is performance, don't panic. Just notice. Ask, what small step toward alignment can I take here? Maybe it's speaking up once in a meeting. Maybe it's wearing something you actually like. Maybe it's admitting you don't know an answer. These micro acts of authenticity build strength like micro workouts. Over time, they change your baseline. Authenticity also requires rest. Being on all the time, even as your authentic self, can drain you. Give yourself solitude to recharge, reflect, and listen inward. This keeps your authenticity fresh instead of forced. When you re-enter connection from a grounded state, you bring more presence and less defensiveness. Take a moment now to imagine yourself moving through a typical day without a mask. What would you say no to? What would you say yes to? How would you walk into a room? How would you handle a compliment? A criticism? Picture it vividly. That version of you already exists. Each honest choice brings you closer to living it. Authenticity and connection are not opposites. They feed each other. The more you show up as yourself, the more you attract people who resonate with you, and the more your relationships support your freedom. You don't have to exile yourself from human connection to be free of opinions. You just have to stop sacrificing yourself to them. In the next chapter, we'll explore the deeper mindset shifts that make ignoring opinions sustainable, how to cultivate a sense of purpose and meaning that's stronger than any passing judgment, so that your inner freedom isn't a fragile mood, but a durable way of life. Chapter 8. Everything you've practiced so far, self-awareness, steadiness under criticism and praise, boundaries, resilience, authenticity, can feel like a lot of work if it's done in a vacuum. It's easier to stay free from other people's opinions when you're anchored in something larger than yourself. That something larger is purpose. Without it, ignoring opinions can start to feel like a lonely struggle. With it, it becomes a natural side effect of being absorbed in what matters. Purpose doesn't have to mean a grand mission. It can be raising a child with patience, creating honest art, running a business with integrity, caring for your health, or learning a skill that excites you. Purpose is any direction of energy that feels deeply meaningful to you. When you're focused on that, other people's judgments become background noise rather than controlling signals. You don't have to work so hard to ignore them because your attention is occupied by what you value. Think of a musician practicing alone in a room. If her purpose is to become a better player, she will practice whether or not anyone applauds. If her purpose is applause itself, she will stop practicing as soon as the praise quiets. Purpose acts like gravity. It keeps you grounded even when the winds of opinion blow. This is why some of the freest people you meet are quietly absorbed in work, family, or service they care about. They don't look like they're ignoring opinions because they're not fighting them. They're simply busy doing what matters. Finding your purpose is less about brainstorming and more about listening. Ask yourself, when do I feel most alive? What activities leave me with a sense of quiet satisfaction rather than a craving for recognition? Where have I endured effort gladly, even when no one noticed? Your answers don't have to be perfect or final. Purpose evolves, but even a rough sense of it gives you an orientation point, a star to navigate by when opinions cloud the sky. Once you identify a sense of purpose, weave it into your daily life. Small, consistent actions matter more than big, dramatic gestures. If learning is part of your purpose, read for 20 minutes a day. If creativity is part of your purpose, sketch, write, or tinker regularly. If caring for others is part of your purpose, schedule time to do it without fanfare. These practices build a rhythm that's independent of praise or criticism. Each time you show up for your purpose, you strengthen your self-trust. Purpose also helps you handle setbacks. When criticism or rejection hits, you can frame it in the context of your larger direction. Does this feedback help me serve my purpose better? Does this rejection open a door to a more aligned path? This turns other people's opinions into data rather than verdicts. You can take what's useful and leave the rest without losing your center. Another powerful mindset shift is to focus on contribution rather than impression. Instead of asking, "How do they see me?" ask, "What can I give here?" When your attention moves from self-image to contribution, anxiety about opinions often shrinks. For example, if you're giving a presentation, focus on helping your audience understand rather than on how you're being judged. If you're posting online, focus on the value of the message rather than the number of likes. This orientation makes your actions more purposeful and your inner state more stable. It's also helpful to define success for yourself. If you don't, the world will define it for you. Likes, followers, money titles. There's nothing wrong with external measures, but they're slippery anchors. Decide what success means in your terms. Maybe it's showing up consistently, learning something new, acting with kindness, or maintaining your health. When you measure yourself by your own metrics, other people's metrics lose their hold. One simple but potent practice is to write a personal manifesto, a short, private statement of your values and priorities. It might begin, "I choose to live with honesty, creativity, and compassion. I value learning, health, and family. I measure success by how aligned I am with these values." Read it each morning. This doesn't have to be rigid. It's a living document, but it gives you a reference point. When opinions come, you can glance back and ask, "Does this align with my manifesto?" If yes, consider it. If no, release it. Purpose and meaning also bring a sense of patience. When you're oriented towards something that matters, you don't need instant results or universal approval. You're playing a longer game. This patience acts like a shield against the urgency of other people's judgments. You can say, "I'm building something meaningful here. I don't need every passerby to like it." This calm persistence is one of the hallmarks of inner freedom. Importantly, purpose doesn't isolate you. In fact, it can deepen your connections. When you live in alignment with what matters to you, you become more trustworthy to others. They know where you stand. You also become more inspiring. People are drawn to those who act from conviction rather than from fear of disapproval. You create a kind of silent permission for others to do the same. Take a moment to reflect now. What's one area of your life that feels meaningful regardless of opinions? It could be a hobby, relationship, a cause, a way of being. How could you give it a little more time or focus this week? Even a small shift, 15 minutes of undistracted attention, can remind you why you're practicing all these inner skills in the first place. You're not just learning to ignore opinions. You're learning to live fully, with purpose at your back. Ignoring opinions stops being a technique and becomes a byproduct. You're not constantly scanning for judgment because you're immersed in what you value. This is the deeper level of freedom. You don't have to harden your heart or plug your ears. You are simply too engaged in meaningful living to be captured by every passing comment. In the final chapter, we'll bring everything together. how to integrate these practices into a life that feels whole, how to stay free without becoming closed, and how to continue walking the path to inner freedom long after you finish reading. Chapter 9. By now, you've walked through a series of inner practices: self-awareness, calm in the face of judgment, setting boundaries, resilience, authenticity, balanced openness, and purposeful living. Each chapter has been a brick in the same structure, a life lived from the inside out rather than the outside in. This final chapter is not about adding another technique. It's about integration, weaving what you've learned into the fabric of everyday life, so it becomes who you are rather than something you do. The first integration is about shifting identity. Up to now, you might have thought of yourself as someone who needs to ignore opinions. But what if you saw yourself instead as someone who naturally listens selectively, who holds their own center, who values inner freedom more than external approval? This isn't an act of willpower. It's a recognition of what you've been practicing. Each time you pause before reacting, each time you choose your own values over someone else's expectations, you're rehearsing a new identity. Over time, it stops feeling like ignoring opinions and starts feeling like being yourself. The second integration is about rhythm. Inner freedom isn't a one-time decision. It's a way of moving through life. That means it helps to build small, steady habits that support it. Morning reflection, journaling, conscious breathing, regular time away from screens, walking without headphones, intentional conversations with people who uplift you. These are like daily vitamins for your independence. They create a rhythm where you're repeatedly reminded of your center before the day's noise begins. Another key integration is using opinions as feedback rather than commands. Opinions will never disappear. People will still comment, criticize, advise, and praise. The difference is that you now have a filter. You can ask, is this information relevant to my growth or my purpose? Does it align with my values? If yes, you can consider it without losing your self-respect. If no, you can let it pass without resentment. This transforms the whole experience. You're no longer at war with opinions. You're simply discerning. It's also helpful to cultivate an environment that supports your inner freedom. This doesn't mean surrounding yourself only with people who agree with you. It means choosing relationships, media, and spaces that leave you feeling more alive, not more anxious. Friends who respect your boundaries, mentors who challenge you without belittling you, online spaces that feed curiosity instead of outrage. All of these reinforce the freedom you're practicing. Environments are like soil. They influence what grows inside you. One subtle but powerful practice is self-compassion. Even with all these tools, there will be days when a comment gets under your skin or a judgment shakes you. That's normal. Inner freedom is not about never being affected. It's about recovering faster and deeper. When you notice yourself caught in someone's opinion, instead of scolding yourself, I should be over this by now. Try kindness. It's okay. I'm learning. I can return to my center. This gentleness shortens the time you spend entangled and strengthens your resilience. Remember, too, that freedom from opinions doesn't mean isolation. You can still care about people, collaborate, and be open to influence. In fact, by not being enslaved to approval, you often become more generous. You can give feedback without agenda, receive criticism without defensiveness, and offer support without needing recognition. This is the paradox of inner freedom. It doesn't cut you off from the world. It allows you to engage with it more honestly. If you ever feel lost on this path, return to the simple anchor of breath and presence. Inhale slowly. Feel your feet on the ground. Ask, what actually matters right now? Usually it's not the opinion swirling in your head, but the life happening in front of you. The conversation you're in, the work at hand, the person you love, the quiet of a morning. This moment-by-moment return is the essence of freedom. It doesn't require perfect mastery. It requires practice. Finally, keep a long view. Inner freedom isn't a destination you reach and then stop. It's a lifelong art. You'll keep learning, adjusting, deepening. Some seasons you'll feel unshakable. Others you'll feel raw and reactive. Both are part of the process. Each time you come back to yourself, you strengthen the habit of living from the inside out. Over months and years, This builds a quiet confidence that's hard to shake, not because you've armored yourself, but because you've rooted yourself. This book has been about more than ignoring opinions. It's been about reclaiming your agency, your attention, your values, and your joy. It's about realizing that you can't control the waves of judgment and praise, but you can learn to surf them with balance. It's about seeing that freedom isn't out there waiting for universal approval. It's inside you, waiting for your own approval. When you live from that place, opinions lose their power because they're no longer the source of your worth. As you close these pages, consider one small action you can take today to embody what you've learned. It could be a pause before answering a critical email. It could be spending an hour on a project you care about without sharing it online. It could be rewriting your personal definition of success. It could be simply sitting quietly and feeling your own presence. Whatever it is, let it be a gentle declaration. I choose inner freedom. The path to inner freedom is not about withdrawal or indifference. It's about presence, clarity, and courage. You don't have to fight every opinion or prove every critic wrong. You only have to keep coming back to what matters, again and again. With practice, you'll find that you're no longer straining to ignore opinions. You're simply living your life, and the noise fades on its own. That is the art of ignoring opinions. That is the path to inner freedom. End of the book.